All right, what's going on YouTube? This is Mark from TRADEPRO Academy. Welcoming you guys to today's midday update for Thursday, October the 10th. It's coming at you guys from our headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And let's go ahead and get started with this update, guys. I'm just going to mute myself on this feed. Awesome. And we'll go ahead and get started. So there was no update this morning. Georgie's not feeling too well. So we will do a quick wrap up of the overnight drivers and some of the drivers throughout the US session. So the big news yesterday was basically that US-China trade principle talks got underway in Washington. That's going to be later today. There was a lot of speculation on the outcome, both positive and negative. Rumors of potential currency accord as part of a partial trade agreement, coupled with a delay in the next round of US tariff increase on Chinese goods. So that gave us a bit of a rally in today's session. However, overnight, there was some funny business going on, and let's just read through that. So, US stocks rallied Wednesday on trade optimism, and then they fell sharply after the close on reports that the high level trade talks between US and China, scheduled for today and tomorrow in Washington, might be cut short. All right, so that is basically what gave us that dump around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time yesterday, and markets have recovered that drop in basically in today's U.S. cash session. We did recover a good part of that. What was that level? So right around the 21s, 29, 21s. And so we opened just shy of that. We opened around the 16 quarters or so, and we pressed on up above that level. And we were telling our team, if we can get back above those overnight highs, we'll likely have a bunch of buy stops waiting up there, and we'll get a nice pop higher. And that's what we've seen. Once we got above those overnight highs, the markets rallied pretty much 20 handles since then, and now we're kind of slowing down, finding some more consolidation before the next move. All right, so that is the overnight drivers out of rather with regards to the U.S. and China trade talks. Throughout today's session, couple of things that came through. Um, we do have at the moment, where is he? We have Fed's Kashkari speaking at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, and Fed's Daly speaking at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Outside of that, we have the results of the 16 billion 30-year note auction at 1 p.m., Treasury budget at 2 p.m., and Fed's Daly speaking again at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Not really high impact events on this one, guys. Don't really anticipate the market moving too much. Um, and one of the things that we said in today's trading room was that it's a relatively quiet session as far as economic data is concerned. So we were kind of joking around that what it's going to take to get this market to pop above those buy stops, above that overnight high, was a Trump tweet. And, Trump's awfully reliable these days. Came out and he tweeted, big day of negotiations with China. They want to make a deal, but do I? Question mark. I meet with the vice premier tomorrow at the White House. So that was one of the tweets that came through, that China doesn't want to get a deal. That's how the market took it. So we did get a nice pop off of that. We also had out of China, Chinese Vice Premier Liu told U.S. business leaders yesterday that China is willing to reach an agreement on matters that both sides care about and to prevent further friction from further escalations. This is coming from Chinese press. As far as actual economic data that came out this morning, the major numbers here were the CPI numbers. We also did have unemployment claims come through, and CPI numbers came in at a miss, 0% versus 0.1% expected. Your CPI X, so without taking into consideration food or energy, the month over month figures also missed at 0.1% versus 0.2 expected. And initial jobless claims also, actually, this one did not miss. This one came in a little bit better than expected. 215,000 was what analysts were expecting. This number came in at 210,000. Continuing claims also 1.68 million versus 1.65 million expected. So that's basically what we had on that front. We also had natural gas inventories come through today. Again, not really that much of a driver on crude oil. and it came right in line with expectations. Indicated range was 97 to 99 billion cubic feet. Came in at 98 billion cubic feet. So neither a draw nor a build on that one. Relatively neutral. Natural gas report doesn't really have as much effect on crude oil. And the thing with natural gas inventories is that surprisingly the analysts tend to get it right. And so when analysts tend to get it right, you don't really get much movement because if they're getting it right, that means there's no real surprise. Whereas the crude oil inventory is the one that we trade every Wednesday. That usually has somewhat of a discrepancy between what the analysts forecast and what actually comes through. And so that one often gives us a little bit more movement, a little bit more volatility, and that's why we prefer that one over these natural gas reports. So you guys are now updated with regards to some of the drivers overnight, some of the drivers throughout the US session, and some of the events, or rather the scheduled events on the agenda for the remainder of today's session. So with that being said, let's switch on over to our charts here. Let me just find where my charts are. There we go. So there are the charts. Let's get this guy in a nice pinkish color. Little test. Awesome. Coming through, no problem. And before I get into the charts, let's say hello to the people on chat. Hello, George. Good afternoon, Bernard and Joseph. Happy to see you guys in here. Welcome. All right, so here is our quote board, ladies and gentlemen. Up top, you will see crude oil futures. We've traded 413,000 contracts on the session, and we are up 1.5% more or less. Our previous day close came in at 52.65, and our open today came in at 53.12. So we are both above the previous day close, which is bullish, and we are above the current open, which is also bullish. One thing that's surprising to me with crude oil, actually, I'll get into that in a sec. So that's what the quote board shows us. All right, positive on. It's okay on the volume front, but as far as daily change percentage is concerned, that is showing more bullish sentiment in the crude oil market this morning. S&P 500, EPZ 19s. Pretty good volume, just under a million contracts traded on today's session. And you guys will see kind of the correlation if you've been following along for any point in time, the correlation between the volume at this part of the day and the actual movement in the equities. So you'll see today 999,000, almost a million, and we had pretty good trending day so far on today's session. So there's somewhat of a correlation between higher volume coming in and those moves. I think yesterday we were talking about this, and these guys were somewhere around 600,000 to 700,000 coming into FOMC, and you can see yesterday's trading day was very choppy. We kind of stuck around a range for a good part of the day before. Actually, it was over here. We stuck around in a bit of a range throughout the session, got out of that range, and then into Globex just dumped. All right, so not much on yesterday's session, but today you can see with a lot more volume, we're getting some more movement. So that's the quote board for us today. Let's take a look at our pivot charts, give us an idea of where we are in the larger term of things. So on crude oil, we are pressing up into our R1. As I mentioned, today's session looking pretty bullish. We did break below yesterday's, or from, what was this, 10.8. That was Tuesdays, I believe. We broke below Tuesdays swing low here overnight, or not overnight. That was probably around Globex time. We broke below that, recovered, came back. Now we are kind of pressing higher. And so bulls are in control, and they're coming into a level where I think there's going to be another battle between the sellers and the buyers as we approach R1 and as we approach that previous day high, sitting about 20 cents higher or so. Previous day high comes in at the 53.74s. Our pivot comes in at 53.55. So between those 55s and the 74s, around that level, I am anticipating some selling pressure to come in. Whether we drive it back down to fresh lows, I'm not too sure about that, but we can take it one step at a time. And if we do see the sellers defend the previous day high and the R1, first location back down to the pivot. If we can crack that pivot, we'll likely move back down to the S1. All right, S&P 500 here. Zooming out on the chart. Hello, Paul. Zoom it out on the chart here. We do have that low from the previous day. We kind of came back up and to retest these highs. sold off from there. I think that's what we were mentioning yesterday. Rolled back up, a little bit of a double top, retested those lows, and we held. All right, guys. So we held those lows, and leading into today's session, we are kind of flirting around the pivot, and we've since popped that above those previous highs. So now it's looking like the buyers are definitely uh, in control somewhat. Back above R1. We've seen them holding the R1. We've broken above the R1. The R1 is at pretty much the 2940s. So long as we maintain above that level, 2940s, I think we can get a run. My ultimate target for the end of this week is a push back up into 2960s. And the reason why I like those 2960s is because they are quite a sore spot on the charts. Very easy to see these previous highs that we're holding. And the fact here that we were unable to continue lower really on this rotation down, and we've rotated back up. That's got me thinking anyone that got short up there, they've got stops sitting up here. All right, any sellers that got short up in that level looking for a break of these lows didn't get the break of those lows, and so they're likely still in the trade with their stops sitting just above there. And I can see us making an effort to pop those stops, take that liquidity, and we see where we go from there. However, until we get up there, I think the buy side is the right side. All right, so let's look at the charts now. So here's my chart of crude oil. All right, crude oil, your previous day high came in, as mentioned, right around those 74s, right up there. You've also got your value area high up here. All right, and so this level right around the 53.40s, you can see it was a big level of resistance. A lot of rotations came in through here, a lot of rotations. We did press below the open for a quick minute, and the open is also overlaid with the 5-day point of control. So a lot of volume came in throughout the last 5 days at that level. It's quite interesting that we held it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, dipped below it, and then rolled right back up to the top of the range. And now this little wick on here with that big volume, I think that we've got some long retail up here now, and the fact that we're kind of holding this level consolidating, I think some of the people that got long up here, their stops might get puked out back below on another run to the open. So as it stands, if we maintain below these 53.40s, I think we'll see some rotations and then a pop back down to retest that open. It's kind of odd that crude, hasn't really retested its Globex View app. It tends to like to do that. And so the fact that it hasn't done so today on the pit session, that's quite interesting. The fact that we were down here very close to it, but couldn't quite get down there. We had to rotate back up to take out the top side liquidity. That's where I'm at right now. All right, so 53.40s, as long as we hold that, I think we'll continue lower. Back above that, the next line in the sand for the sellers is those 55s to those 74s. If they get back above that, I think the buying is going to take over control. Buy side's going to step in. Until that happens, sellers are still in control. That's what I got on this market. On the equity front, S&P 500, here's what we had today. All right. Um, so first and foremost, the reason why there was a lot of buy stops, or rather sell stops, sitting just, hold on, I'm mixing up my words here. So let's draw it with red. All right, so this was the Globex close, previous day close. Right off of that, we had a nice dump that took us all the way down into the 81.75. All right, so from 29.21 down to 28.81.75. Nice dump there. You can see we've kind of recovered that, tested that level at 8. Nice sell off from there. And you can see we tried it a couple times again before the market opened here at 9:30. There was one test, there's another test, third test. So every time you can imagine people getting short there, getting short, getting short, and this thing continues to make higher lows as we're kind of creeping up. You can imagine you got some sellers that have buy stops sitting up there to protect their positions, right? Protect their downside. So the more that this happens without the market collapsing, the more that these buy stops are in there. And this is what buy stop release looks like. Nice big buy stop release. And now we've ran higher. All right, so trend is clearly to the upside. As far as this session is concerned, what I'm seeing right now, we did find some resistance around those 47s. And in trending markets, what tends to work is you'll get breakouts, retests, consolidation, continuation. All right, so that's what we're looking for on this market. Um, if you didn't catch any of this upside, that's fine. There was an opportunity to fade here, but if you missed that fade, right, the way that we teach it, you can catch the pullbacks. If you miss the pullbacks, you can look to catch the breakout. If you miss both of those, you can try the fade. However, at this point, the fade is looking like it's starting to conclude as we're coming down back into support. All right, so what am I looking at? Pretty much this level between these 40s and these 36s. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be an exact price level. It's just a general idea of where price might start to stall out. Again, we're not setting blind limits in there. I'm not putting a limit in there in hopes for it to bounce and go. What I'm going to be doing is letting it come in very similar to what you saw here. A little rotation down, a little wick that forms, pops up, starts to consolidate, hold that structure, and then you look to get long near those structure lows for the press on up. All right, so not looking for just a quick bounce, like I said, looking for it to come down, rotate a little bit, try to make a move lower, fail, come up, hold some consolidation, and then make that press on up. That's what I got on the SPOOs. Um, if we get back below that US VWAP around above or right, I'm just losing my words, guys. This is your value area high, all right? And so you got your US VWAP sitting right there. So if we get back below this level, I think the buy momentum might be done for the time being. And so if we get back below here, come back in there and we do see the sellers defend that, I think we'll make another move to the previous day high, maybe back into this cluster of support. However, don't really see that being the scenario. The one that I'm more, or the one that's more probable to me is coming back down, holding support, and trying to make a press towards those previous session highs. All right, so that's what I got on the report today. You can see that there is somewhat a buying coming in here as this thing is pressing off of its lows. So okay indication so far. Can you still see me on here? Sorry guys, YouTube just telling me that the stream stopped, but it doesn't look like it did. All right, thanks YouTube for throwing me off. So again, looking for support to hold here. That's kind of my next best trade. All right, so that's what I got on that front. Let's look at the TradePro Performance Index. But before we do that, let me hide some of these guys. There we go. And there we go. So TradePro Performance Index for today's session, October 10th, 2019. Another bit of a tough session. The move higher really happened as we were kind of signing off. And so a majority of the room, I don't think we caught the poll results after that move, but before that move happened, this is what the status of the room looked like. We were about 66% positive on the session, 54% were up, just under 12% were flat, and just under 34% were down. So overall, 66.67%. We're kind of coming back towards our average here. Our normal average is around 66 to 67% on a monthly basis, what the average positive ratio tends to be. So got off to a nice start in October, giving back some of those gains. However, this is just a pullback, and I'd be looking to buy the dip on this TradePro Performance Index any day of the week. All right, guys, so that's basically what I got for you all today. Let me think. Nothing else really on the agenda for today's session. So make sure to have a new squawk if you will be day trading. That big move that happened today, we wouldn't have caught unless we had our new squawk. All right, so the new squawk really kept us on the right side today, although they were kind of mumbling, but nonetheless, it still worked out for the best. All right, so that's what I got. If you will be trading into the remainder of today's session, you guys know our 3 rules: patience, diligence, and discipline. All right, until tomorrow's session, you guys, good luck and good trading. This is Mark signing out. Take care, guys.